Hi, my name is Catherine Chapman, and I'm one of the soprano section leaders here at the St. Andrew's Episcopal Church in downtown Tampa, Florida. Today, we're going to be talking about César Fanck and one of his compositions, Panis Angelicus. César Fanck, or César Auguste Jean-Guillaume Hebert Fanck, was born in 1822 in Liège, what is now modern-day Belgium, but was then the United Kingdom of the Netherlands. His father, Nicolas Joseph, raised him and his brother to be musically aware. Nicolas Joseph advocated for his kids a lot. He was kind of like Mozart's father in a way. They both studied in Paris and they went to the Paris Conservatoire. The thing about Paris Conservatoire is that they could not enroll unless they were French citizens. So Nicolas Joseph had to become a French citizen in order for his sons to enroll. César Fanck studied there for 5 years. He took classes in counterpoint, in organ, composition, and piano, all of which he was pretty good in, except for counterpoint, which he didn't do too well in, obviously. Nobody's good at counterpoint. He wrote an oratorio, Ruth, and a bunch of other music that was looked over by a few different musicians. Franz Liszt was one of those musicians, which was pretty cool. Liszt acted as a mentor in these years after the Conservatoire and was really critical in his development as a composer. He began to teach piano and as well as do like small performances, and he ended up falling in love with one of his piano students. He married her in 1847, and they married at the church that would then become his parish church, his first parish position at Notre-Dame de Lorette. And so he stayed there and moved around to a couple of different churches before he took on his main role, and perhaps his most defining role, as the maître de chapelle at Basilique Sainte-Clotilde. This is probably the start of a second kind of major shift in all of his compositions, and we can see a lot of his output reflect the sacred subject matter, as well as a type of approach to his music that was different from the ones before. In a way, the Basilique gave him a foray to produce more works. It was here that he wrote both pieces that we'll be looking at in these videos, Panis Angelicus, which was a part of the Messa Trois Voix, which he composed in 1859, and Ave Maria. During this time, he also started touring different organs at different chapels, notably Saint-Sulpice, Notre-Dame, and others, and he gave organ concerts and kind of started collaborating with more and more people. He also developed a close relationship with one of the bigger names in French organ music, Camille Saint-Saëns. You'll note that a lot of these composers, Gounod, Saint-Saëns, Franck, Messiaen, they were all very connected, whether through the Conservatoire or the general culture of Paris. Camille Saint-Saëns is kind of at the center of that, so he'll remain a common name in a lot of our stories and biographies, so long as we're talking about French romanticists. He taught a few composers that you might know of, Vincent Tandy, Aimé Chanson, Louis Vierne, and Henri Duparc. These are all pretty big names in Romanticism and post-Romanticism in France. He was well loved by his students. They called him Père Franck or Pépé Franck. All of his students really looked up to him. They gave him a lot of thoughts about his compositions, even the bad ones, even the poorly received ones. His influence in the world of organ is more far-reaching than it seems in the general world of music, but in voice he certainly made his small influences as well. Panis Angelicus is, of course, a communion hymn written in Latin by Thomas Aquinas, who writes a lot of our texts in the liturgy and service today. Panis Angelicus, of course, means bread of heaven. It's generally just giving thanks for the food that is bestowed upon us. Camille Saint-Saëns also wrote a setting of Panis Angelicus, and you can see how they as contemporaries might have compared their pieces or just been inspired by one another to create these kind of musical expressions. Definitely it's weird to see only these two settings really arise, and it might have just taken to the Romantic era to set Panis Angelicus due to political and cultural ideas of what it meant to speak Latin in the church or to sing a solo song in the venue of a church to do music da chiesa, like they did back in the Renaissance, especially after Martin Luther's kind of cultural moment in Germany and all these things going back 200 years before the Romantic era in France. There were a lot of things bringing the church closer to the people. So having texts and songs that were closer to folk culture, closer to the community, in someone's native language for service so that the people could really understand the service overall. In the Romantic era, we saw a kind of resurgence of a quest for creative expression, I would say. A lot of works during that era kind of turned back to the Renaissance, turned back to texts from far earlier. It lent influence to the style of the time, to the kind of fantastical, imagined settings and worlds. And in this reframing of perhaps a antiquated Latin text, I think a lot of composers were quick to jump back into it and make it seem as beautiful as it might have been then without taking it away or isolating the public from its meaning. Thanks for watching. If you'd like to see more Artists and Arias videos or live services, go ahead and like our Facebook page, St. Andrews. Yeah, see you next week.